My name's Stephen Waddington. I'm a European Director at Ketchum. I'm also President of the CIPR this year. I guess my role at both organisations is helping them get to grips with new forms of media and networks. And that's the discussion we're going to have today. Topic of today is the collision course between PR, digital, creative, media, and I guess you could add management consultancy to that list. In a world where the consumer, our audience, makes no distinction. Hashtag for today, I want this to be a conversation, so the hashtag for today is Gorkana New World. If you've got any questions or comments you want to make, chip in on that. We've had quite a lot of questions in advance, which I've compiled and used to kick this off. I'm interested in trying to come out of today with some answers as what the agency and the brand world is going to look like 5 to 10 years from now and what our jobs are going to look like. I'm going to pass to the panel to introduce themselves. I've asked each of them, though, first off, as a bit of an icebreaker, to tell us about one of their favourite apps that they're using at the moment. I'm going to start that off by telling you about one of mine. I commute in London by the Thames Clipper along the river, fantastic service. They've just launched this service where you can buy a ticket online and use your mobile phone as a ticket. Now, we seem to be living in a world where there's loads and loads of friction between the old world and new. And if you tried to buy a train ticket online, and I'm looking at East Coast and lots of the other train operators, you pay 200 quid for a ticket that you then, on a beautifully mobile optimized site, that you then have to print out on paper, which is just shit. It doesn't work. Anyway, Thames Clipper have cracked it. They've got this beautiful app. I'd encourage you to have a look at it and head down to the river and use the river service. It's brilliant. Without further ado, Sarah, tell us about yourself.
Hello, my name's Sarah McGee. I'm the head of PR for Domino's Pizza. I've been there about 10 months now. That feels about 15 years, but in a good way. My role encompasses consumer, internal, city, crisis. We also look after Republic of Ireland, Germany and Switzerland, and all franchisee communications, because Domino's is a franchisee-led organisation. So it's quite a big role, but it's huge fun. And my favourite app, I'm sorry, we were told to come up with something really exciting, but the one app I cannot live without is Twitter. I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant. That's the way I tend to get my news now. It's the way I also socialise and stuff, but I just love it. I think it's fantastic.
Morning, my name's Paul Fabretti. I'm the digital and social media lead for Telefonica, so you'll know us as O2 in the UK, we are Movistar in Spain, Vivo in Brazil. My role is to essentially try and envisage and deliver a sort of a global strategy for Telefonica, both at corporate level, but also working with all our businesses to try and essentially improve the way that they deliver social media, the way it can be integrated, and also then obviously how we can measure that. As far as apps go, I mean, my big thing at the moment is cycling. So Strava is my favourite app at the moment, by virtue that it's now on my home screen, which it never was. I think the beauty of it is not that you can just time your cycles, but actually it brings in quite a human element, that competitive element of being able to see who else has actually ridden along that particular stretch of road and the time that they've achieved. And I think that's, if you can't necessarily challenge yourself to be better, then seeing what other people are doing is a great kind of way of bringing sort of disparate individuals together.
You're looking very slim, sir.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Neil Kleiner, head of social media for Golan. 2 weeks ago we were called Golan Harris, now we're called Golan, hence the way the world is evolving, changing our name. I lead a team of about 50 digital specialists across community management, social, design and build, crazy app developers who build drones and speak Klingon and all kinds of stuff. Before that, I head up social media for Havas in the UK, where I worked across all of their UK agencies, across media, PR and creative. So I've got a fairly balanced view of kind of social marketing from all different angles. Been specialising in social for about 10 years. I'm not a PR guy. in any way, shape or form. And I think increasingly those kind of titles, those delineations are less relevant. And actually we should look towards solving problems for clients rather than just being touting digital or touting social or touting PR as a way to solve those problems. So I'm all for integration, baby.
Favourite app?
Favourite app? Well, I was going to say, that's your one, isn't it?
No, you can have that one.
Okay, I was going to say Yo, because I think it's absolutely fucking hilarious that we've devolved the language of social communications to just one word, Yo. It's pretty rubbish, in actual fact, but I just think it's kind of funny that we've gone from blogs, long-form content, to Twitter, 140 characters, to just one word. What's next?
Great. I'm Farah Kudruth. I'm one of the co-founders of 3Pipe. I've been in digital for about 15 years, and I set up a digital agency called Blowfish, which I merged into 3Pipe about 18 months ago. So like Neil, I'm not really a PR person. And I think the interesting challenges we've had and that we've been looking at is how do we integrate digital and social across all the activity that we do? How does data become a bigger part of that? And funny enough, we would have chosen the same app, so I'm going to choose something different now, which is practical and useful and may actually give you something. But City Mapper, which is a great way of actually navigating around a handful of European cities when you travel around, much better to find new stuff than Google Maps ever will be. I would suggest you download it and give it a try.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got a mix of social, digital and PR practitioners, traditional, new, mix of brand, mix of agency. So hopefully we'll be able to tackle a lot this morning. I wanted to kick off Cannes last week. PR for the first time brought home a gold award. Is this the start of the golden era of public relations, do you think, finally? Who wants to start? Sarah, the PR practitioner.
Thank you. It's great, obviously, that we got recognised in such a way, but all this talk of a golden era, I always think it has been a golden era. I've always seen PR as a really strong force in the whole mix of marketing and communications, and to suddenly laud up that, wow, look, guess what's here, it's PR, seems a bit strange to me. Fantastic they won, absolutely brilliant, but, you know, we're a damn strong industry. We should be really proud of what we do. I think the UK leads the field pretty much in public relations, and particularly now working within global teams. We absolutely rock compared to other countries. So that's my opinion on that one.
Neil, does it matter?
Well, no, I think it really does matter, but ultimately the Cannes Awards are about recognising creative bravery, and creative bravery should not be just the sole kind of tool of creative or ATO agencies, as any kind of agency should or needs to be creatively brave nowadays in order to do the best work for our clients as we possibly can. I mean, yes, a PR agency won, but also Golan were the first PR agency in history to open the Cannes Festival as well. So we were especially honoured to be there. And there was definitely a sense of more PR practitioners along the croisette. But yeah, I think it's creative bravery is not just the sole kind of tool of traditional kind of creative agencies, quote unquote.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, to Sarah's point, I mean, to say that it's a new age suggests that PR was broken. I think PR is evolving into a multidiscipline practice, but I think there is definitely something in the fact that a PR agency won such a prestigious award, because I think it's almost like the embodiment of what I think everybody's striving to achieve, which is this digital media, app, mobile, but also essentially comms sort of integrated activities. I think that's probably one of the best examples of recognition of that a business actually has been able to do that, and to Neil's point, to say, we've created something of genuine excellence.
I think what's been really interesting for me is coming from a very digital background and looking at this whole piece is that PRs always seem to have a bit of a chip on its shoulder about its role. Absolutely, fundamentally, from where I've come from and the conversations I've been sitting through.
In what sense?
In the sense that there's always this debate about the role of the ad agency, the role of a management consultant, and I think actually as media has evolved and changed, it actually gives so much more creative freedom to the PR industry than it's ever had. And so actually it's kind of conscious looking at going, well, what are they doing, well, actually the armoury you have to play with is now so much more evolved and will continue to be so, that it's one of those ones where I kind of go, everyone's looking back over their shoulder, where actually all you should do is look forward and go, okay, there is so much more we can do. There's so much more in our hands.
But it's more than bigger suits, better suits, shinier suits, facing up and looking bigger and brighter, isn't it? I once interviewed Mark Bukowski, who said the ad guys always wear the best suits. They're always in the room 10 minutes before the PR guys. They're just...
Yeah, I agree. There is a point about looking at the hierarchy and of where relationships actually are, and that traditional sense the ad agency tends to own that relationship, and the creative one much more strongly than anyone else. And that's something that actually I think we've got more of an opportunity to break because of all the way things are changing than we've ever had before. Is that going to take a bit of time because of the way things are? Yeah, of course it is.
Sarah, have you got chips on your shoulder?
The thing with the chip on your shoulder, I think it's absolute bollocks, really. Sorry to drop the B
You got
word
the
so
first
early on.
bollocks, 10 points.
We're trying to see who can swear the most between us, by the way. I worked with Mark. I trained with Mark for a couple of years, so I'm a little bit biased there. He taught me, and God knows countless hundreds of us, to stand up and fight for what you believe in, to speak to journalists, to make sure that you're always speaking in the right terms, and that you stand out, you make your brand, your client stands out. I've never had a chip on my shoulder. Honestly, I've never, or other PR people.
I'm obviously not talking about you.
No.
I'm always not talking about you personally.
No, I know, but I'm allowed to talk about the industry now.
If I look at that collectively about the attitude and general confidence, and I'll be fair, digital people have had a slight arrogance about, well, the whole world's going to be digital, so...
We just go in quietly and just get on with the job. You know, we don't often have the big budgets, so we have to get out there, work bloody hard, get the coverage for the client, and bam, hey presto, we don't, as Mark says, wear the shiniest suits, and I can vouch for that with Mark without a shadow of a doubt. But we get on with it, you know, we do a darn good job, and we influence.
But that's the point of Cannes, isn't it? That it celebrates excellence, excellence in creativity. Sir Martin Sorrell said in an interview with the Holmes Report, post-Cannes, the ad guys just are much better at submitting entries to competitions, and the PR guys are a little bit humble.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I know myself and my agency MDs here. I know I'm really good at touting other people's, and particularly Domino's or drinks industry where I used to work, how good they are. Comes to writing something about myself, oh no, heck, don't want to do that. Really don't want to do that. But I do generally disagree with the fact that you think the PR industry is very humble. I don't think we are. I think we're a really collective, very strong, very passionate group. We have all kinds of different things that we have to deal with. Sometimes it's not perceived as sexy as advertising, but we just get on in there and we do the business, and we get great returns in-house or for client side.
Okay, there's an ongoing narrative in our business about the role of social, who owns social. We're not going to talk about that because it's nonsense.
Thank God.
But what I want to talk about is whether social and digital in public relations, actually in any discipline, is an evolutionary life form, or is it like the media that it's just here to stay? And really, the bigger issue is where social becomes embedded within every aspect of a business. That point was put by a couple of people that in the lead up to the event. I want to thank Meredith Lynch from WagEd and Lisa Simmons from FDI. So social, digital, isn't it just part of doing business? Who wants to start?
I think it is now, and I think as far as PR goes, I think as far as evolution goes, we're probably at a point where we've probably seen the most change that we have in a long, long time. The next step is around mobile and everybody trying to get their head around what that means. You know, the fact that somebody's out and about, they are probably more distracted than they've ever been. The reality is that you're going to have an awful lot harder job trying to attract somebody's attention when you're out and about than you will have been. But that's not to say that actually the biggest challenge is about integrating all of those aspects into the whole of comms and marketing. I think when I look at the way that O2 has sort of shifted its structures around sort of silos of comms, PR, marketing, online, it's almost sort of a flat layer now where, you know, we've got some strategic insight, we've got some commercial objectives, and everybody has a fair shout of the pie. And I think that's where you start to sort of eradicate the silos, because everybody that can then start to sort of interpret the insights that you need to deliver the objective against from an equal footing.
So, Farad, you integrated a digital business into a PR business. What's that about?
It's actually very much trying to address the problem that Paul highlighted, and I think that from our perspective that social and digital are here to stay. It is part of the mix, and actually, as Paul's rightly highlighted, it's actually going to be how our consumption habits change from tablet to mobile to wearable technology, and how do we integrate across all those platforms and use all of those? And that's about giving the people within the agency and the business the right kind of skill sets to be able to cope with all those changes, and hopefully the ability to evolve to whatever the next thing happens to be, because none of us would have predicted we are where we are now. Mobile 2 years ago was relatively unimportant, even though everyone's been talking about the year of mobile for 5 or 6 years before that.
10, mate.
10, yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that's really the course of business. And I think it's interesting that Paul mentioned that structurally the way that they're arranged to take advantage of that, because actually I think our experience of a lot of clients is that isn't really how they're built at the moment, and trying to get through different departments and silos makes life quite challenging when you've got more complex briefs to work with.
Well, I think ultimately we owe it to ourselves as agencies to follow the consumer. And obviously the rise of social marketing, the rise of mobile consumption, the fact that over 86% of people only access Facebook via their mobile app at the moment, we need to evolve because the consumers, or people, are evolving in terms of the way that they consume content, but not just the platforms, but the mindset that how they're interacting with brands. Most brand interaction in social media is while you're doing something else, let's be honest. You're not sitting down to engage in a very complex Facebook app or upload your swish as part of a user-generated content kind of competition. You're in the queue at Tesco's, you're at the bar waiting for your friends to turn up, and you're scanning through your Twitter feed or your Facebook news feed. You're bombarded with messages alongside, from brands, but alongside the things that you really care about, stuff from your friends or things that you've actively opted in. So we have to work harder than ever to disrupt that.
Sarah, is it Domino's? Are you seeing social move from comms into customer service? Do people moan about the pizzas on Twitter?
Oh God, yeah, massively, yeah, very much so.
So how are you dealing with that?
We have a team that's always on. I mean, I'm very fortunate, I know, compared to other brands. We have a dedicated social team, which is fantastic. So I'm not actually 24/7 scanning through everything going,
really?
All right, your pizza's late, sorry, my fault again, bloody hell. Although I think people think that's what we do. But there's a real sense of immediacy. You can't let something lie anymore. You've got to deal with it straight away. And if you've got any weaknesses, social will show it up immediately. So if something bad happens, you've got to be straight there. And also interesting, it might be a small thing. Your pizza might be late. You haven't got the topping you wanted. Or it could be a huge thing. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, we were dealing with a global hacking issue, which we didn't thankfully have in the UK. So don't worry, nobody's got your data. Nobody knows that you like jalapeno and pineapple pizzas. But if you lived in France and Belgium, they knew that. There was some ransom demand made for all this data. And it started off on Twitter. The first we heard about it, woke up on a very early Monday morning. And it was like, oh shit, something's happened again. And we had to deal with it straight off on Twitter. So problems that happen elsewhere in the world become our problems. We can't differentiate. You can't put your hands up and go, that's the French. It's not our problem. We've got to deal with it.
And I think the other point there is that certainly our European brands certainly make that distinction between customer service and campaign activity. But you cannot deliver a campaign if you've got a shitstorm.
O2's been very brave, though, in its use of language and dialect in particular in responding to customer complaints.
Yeah, but I think that's, I remember a year or so ago somebody asked me about, what's the secret or what's the tone of voice. And I think the reality is that there is clearly an advertising tone of voice, but I think the point is it's about precedence and confidence. And I think the point is that we whichever team, whether it's UK, Germany, Spain, everybody is given the freedom to use their own personal voice. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So those incidences where we had those sort of glib remarks or those they weren't in any way undermining the issue that somebody had, but it was that genuine feeling of remorse or of I'm really feeling this shit as much as you are. But it's that freedom that somebody said, we've done that now, and look what happened. And I guess that's where I have a bigger problem, is where you're going to get this real-time marketing stuff, where it's trying to almost industrialize this banter, which is just crap. Because it's just opportunistic, and you have to have everything in place to make sure that people. I don't think all of
it is, but I do think there is definitely some lazy real-time marketing.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Where is there an opportunity for automation?
Not necessarily automation, but in the sense of, I mean, come on, in terms of social marketers, we've always been reactive. We've always been able to spot opportunities when when customers are talking to us, and O2 have done some great stuff. I particularly love the Tunde exchange, which is one of my favourite examples of all time. But in terms of the ability for us to create content that we know our customers are talking about, that we know that resonates with the topics of conversation that our customers are engaging with that day, I think is an excellent way to drive brand relevance. But I think there's also a lot of lazy stuff out there where people are just newsjacking and jumping on a trend and sort of shoehorning the brand in where possible.
I mean that's the kind of stuff that I absolutely abhor. But the reality is, customer services has to lead a lot of that, because without that satisfied customer, or certainly that perception that you're resolving something, that gives you the permission to do everything else. I mean, as far as automation goes, we recognised that actually, as Twitter was growing as a channel in the UK, that a lot of the stuff that was coming in was, when's my bill due, direct debit issues, that kind of thing. Well, actually, that's something that with TweetServe, we were able to deliver via direct message. So there are certain aspects of which are literally just the exchange of information, which allow that automation to take place, which means that actually we can then deal with the more human side of customer services, which obviously takes that one-to-one human.
You get your tone of voice right though in how you respond to there are things you probably the same as us. There's things that you're always going to be complaints coming through, but you have a particular tone of voice in doing it, so the person doesn't feel like it's just your checks in the post. Or,
and internally, actually, the guys have a league table to see which particular comment got the most retweets or favourites, that kind of thing. But that's not the driver. That's almost like the reaction to that freedom of speech, I guess.
Okay, so two lessons already. We need to be more assertive as a discipline and be prouder of our role as practitioners. And very clearly, you've heard from everyone on the panel that increasingly PR has a role beyond communication, but well, I firmly believe in every operational area of a business, and you're seeing that in customer service. I want to move on. Let's talk about data. So social media provides us with an opportunity unlike ever before to listen to our markets, our publics, our audiences. A question is, are we maximising that opportunity and making the investments we need to? No, it's not. No. Actually, I'm going to start with Farah. You run a digital business, so...
Yep. Yes, and I think the truth about data and all data is you're getting to a point where there's so much of it, trying to meaningfully understand what you need to use.
That's why you invest in tools, though, right?
It is why you invest in tools, but I think one of the things that you see in the social space going on at the moment is there is a raft of different tools. It's a real startup space. There are lots of people competing with each other and all giving you nothing that quite does the job that you'd really like it to do. Yeah. And so what you end up with is actually a multiplicity of different things to look at different areas, which rather than necessarily simplifying your job, actually makes it a bit more complicated because you don't have a central source of data that you can go to. So a lot of stuff that we're working at the moment is actually how do we take stuff out of different stuff, put it into one thing that gives us the data we actually want to have and use. But then I think the questions people will ask from their data and what clients will want will start changing and become different over time. But I think that's one of the sort of big data areas is there is so much. You need to really define what do you want, what's useful to you, how much volume can you deal with, what can you respond to, and how can you get it into a place where you can actually meaningfully action it without having to look at 4 different pieces of technology to tell you what's trending, what people are actually, your sentiment about something happens to be and how to respond to stuff. So, and I think that's the real piece is I kind of look at all clients and everyone's using a different raft of stuff and no one's got anything that I look at and go, well, that's kind of an easy, unified way to look at something. Thank you very much.
I think part of the challenge is that a lot of vendors are selling features as products.
Yeah.
And the reality is that that's not a sustainable...
Go on, give us an example.
I'm just trying to think of where people might be using, flogging a tool that's evaluating sentiment, for example. We're all sort of reasonably and probably appropriately cynical about what sentiment is, but the ability to determine sentiment is not something that is a billable tool. It's a feature of a wider product. Likewise, top 50 influencers related to your brand. That's a byproduct of another tool. That's not something that you should buy in your own right. So that's a real risk that the kind of the uninitiated in some respect are buying things which ultimately, unless they've got, as you're saying, some kind of a kind of an aggregated dashboard, is just meaningless drivel which just adds to the confusion.
And I think one of the big things that will come up over the next 6, 12 months is there is not a single platform out there that understands organic and paid properly. and with the trends that you start seeing about, and we all know what's going to happen in the social space in terms of we're all going to have to pay for more stuff, get used to it, that there is nothing really out there that allows you to really understand those relationships in a meaningful way. And that, I think, is going to be the biggest challenge for the next 6, 12, 18 months coming up.
Neil, what's Colin's view on data?
Data is hugely important to us. I mean, we, I guess, divide our kind of view of data in terms of campaign measurement and monitoring. So that, you know, I think, and that's probably a very healthy way of looking at it. Sentiment is not a way of measuring the effectiveness of a campaign. It shouldn't necessarily be an objective, but it's a bloody good thing to monitor. So in terms of our kind of campaign measurement tools, we use the usual suspects, the Radian 6s, the Sysomoses, but we also have invested in kind of bespoke tools in terms of monitoring, mostly for us to spot opportunities for either real-time marketing, reactive social content, and also to follow up in sort of pure play news gen. So we can understand which influencers are talking about what and get a barometer of what our target audience cares about at that moment in time, and try and align, find a way in to align our clients to that conversation.
Sarah, I'm going to reframe the question slightly for you. Is there a way, are you able to justify the budgets you need to buy tools?
Yes, we are now. We've for Domino's, social and digital is a huge area. I mean, we're very much a mobile business now, e-commerce rather than store delivery in many respects. So it is very important to us to be able to get the tools right. Talking about sentiment, it's difficult to evaluate that, but for us, it's so darn important. I was brought in to bring the love back onto Domino's because it just felt like it was, I know, hilarious how, but...
Is that your job title?
Oh, no, actually that's Alan Twigg's job title. He's Barry White. That's why I employ him to do
Bring
the consumer.
love back.
Yeah.
Can someone tweet that?
It's been done before. But sentiment for us is really important. We have two very distinct audiences, and we've got to go out and reach them, and trying to get the right data capture for how we're getting on with our families versus our social snackers is really, really difficult. So we are looking at investing more. Digital gets, without doubt, a real good share of the money. PR more so now because they've got me in-house and I'm badgering for budget left, right and centre. And I'm very lucky I have an excellent sales and marketing director who sees the real synergy between all the different disciplines. So it's not, you know, one ad agency gets it all. It's all of us having a fairly equal in the way that you talked about.
A quick poll of the audience. Just put your hand up. Raise your hand, please, if your organisation has a line item in your budget for tools for this year, 2014. Okay. That's surprisingly low.
And actually, that goes to a point I was going to make, which sort of adds a third one to Neil's, is around the use of strategic insights for planning. And it's, certainly in my experience, it's not been something that I think the PR industry, certainly with regards to social, has really done a lot of. There's obviously an analytics challenge, but at the same time using social insights to try and determine, you know, what is strategically the right approach for this idea. You know, there's no shortage of ideas in the PR industry to come up with a particular activation or a certain kind of message. But other than the client insights, what else is actually helping to determine what that idea should look like? And the social tools absolutely should be used, you know, pre and post campaign to decide what the campaign's going to be, but also to evaluate its effectiveness.
We've started using it with tone of voice because we have two distinct audiences, family and sort of social young adults. And we're finding that, you know, you speak to one in one way, obviously, and speak to another in another. And the social is giving us that information. So we can be so much more relevant now rather than, I hate bland corporate press releases. You know, we just don't do that anymore.
I think another kind of really undervalued insight tool is your community managers, if you have them in-house. Community managers get a lot of shit, really. I mean, they're kind of seen as bottom of the rung by some people. I think they're the most important role in any kind of social digital agency because they are the consumer in the room. They sit there and have conversations with millions of customers every day. They know what kind of content resonates with them. They know what stuff pisses them off. And we use community managers very much as a planning and insight function as well as just a customer service function. because they're there with them every day. What a valuable tool. Your community managers within your agency know the customer better than most kind of generic kind of research might do, because it's a live, real-time interaction with millions of customers.
So you make a really interesting point. So public relations as a discipline for me always starts with listening. We've increasingly got access to these tools. 10 to 15% of the audience said they were investing in tools. That's surprisingly low. The point Neil makes well made that actually we have people within our teams, community managers, who are completely plugged into that role. I want to move on, and we've always, we've sort of touched on this. PR industry has always been really, and I'm going to get onto the league chart now. It's always been really shit at measurement. We've always used faux proxies for value. Advertising equivalent value, best example. I hope no one in the audience is using that. I'm not even going to ask.
Oh, come on, we all are.
Okay, question then, is it getting better?
I think the collision between digital and quote-unquote conventional PR is that digital, there is so much data and so much more stuff that we can measure. Unless you're talking about blogger outreach, and that's still just the Wild West, really, in terms of, oh yeah, we put on loads of blogs, it was great, they're really influential, it was fantastic, yeah, it was rocking.
That's like traditional media relations.
Well, absolutely. And I think, I think we definitely need to, I think as our clients are becoming more integrated in terms of the way that they want to quantify success to their senior management, PR is perhaps being slightly exposed. And I don't know the frickin' solution, man. But,
So, Sarah Paul, how do you justify your value to your reports?
Yeah, I was just going to say to the point there is that you've got a challenge there, which is actually inherent often with the role that PR plays in less linear campaign activity, because it's deliver an event, deliver a particular message to a certain number of people. So you're actually somewhat limited in the way that you can deliver the value as part of the wider campaign. So I think that's a real, part of it, I suppose, an inherent issue with the way that sometimes PR agencies are briefed.
Yeah, very much so. It's really difficult. We were at the Isle of Wight Festival a couple of weekends ago, and it was a fantastic success. Obviously, I'm going to say that, I'm the head of PR, but it really was. The way I can't measure it, and my boss can only take it on anecdotal, is my PR assistant went out and met loads of media with the girl from the agency. They were just working the media room constantly all the time because we were supplying free pizza. So she comes away with fantastic contacts.
Who's not going to be happy with
Yeah, exactly. Who's not going to be happy? Brilliant. We'd only been better if I worked for Heineken, who were doing the beer side. But we worked it a darn sight harder than Heineken did. So Tanya now has these fantastic contacts. So for me, that was job well done, and that's really good. But you can't quantify it, and it is a massive, massive frustration. Yeah. We have I'm sure like you guys, whether it's digital or PR, we have key messaging that we expect to see in articles. So we go through them laboriously through the press cuttings. Yes, we've got them. That's great. There needs to be a better way, without a shadow of a doubt, because my CEO doesn't understand it.
There isn't the perfect answer, unfortunately. However, I think one of the things that we've started doing, and it doesn't work all the time because it depends on the nature of what you're doing and the types of campaigns you're running and how much of your audience comes online, but it is looking for, are there changes in your online metrics? Are more people searching for you? Yeah. Have more people visited you as a result around that campaign? Yeah. And it's not necessarily, I wouldn't call it measurement, I'd call it an indication. It's not direct, though, is it? Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily...
But these are proxies, you're counting stuff.
Yeah, but it's almost giving you a wider framework to kind of go, and here's a bunch of other metrics I can use to associate to go, it looks like it has made an impact or it hasn't made an impact. Yeah. I'm not saying they're directly measurable, but I think it's useful to have as part of the armoury to go, okay, well, I've got my key messages across, I've got my KPIs in terms of my reach across, and actually was there a discernible impact that I can actually make out from the rest of my media noise that's going on, which is often the hardest piece. When PR's very much the lead piece of activity that's being done, it tends to be an easier thing to see. Yeah. When you've got a lot of other noise around it, it's a much, much trickier proposition.
Introduced across Europe kind of two tiers of KPIs essentially for social, one of which was kind of a baseline. What's the pulse of all our channels? Are we engaging? And obviously the challenge then is what's organic, what's paid. But then we're sort of looking at things like reach, engagement, forgive me, and then impact. So the reach is not so much how many, what is our total number of customers reached. If we looked at including the several million pounds of paid activity, you're looking at 10 times the population of the UK. But it's more about if we have 1 million fans in the UK on Facebook, and actually we know that the UK online population who uses social is 30 million, well, there's potentially a bit of gap there because they will be customers of somebody else as well. But looking at more the impact, it's things like traffic. Where we're not using a paid-for piece of activity, what's the traffic? We can take somebody to o2.de, but do they convert? But we can certainly say we've delivered the traffic to that website.
Well, so that's an interesting point. I mean, both you, Paul, and Sarah have a product you're selling at the end of the day. Can you're not exactly, you're not splitting down your multi-channel model and looking at, the attribution that comes from your activity to sales.
But that's a huge problem. I mean, if we can crack that, then we've made a massive step forward. I mean, the reality is that we don't know whether it's last click or whether it's the fact that we've got nice offers like Priority, for example, which on Mondays we do free £1 pizzas.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great
That's
tie-in.
done amazing stuff for
It's
us.
been
Lovely.
fantastic.
Brilliant.
But
Bit of brand love at the end.
Yeah, just a bit of love there.
It's that kind of we know that has a direct impact on churn.
Right.
Now, the more we talk about that through our social channels, the more we can start to show customers the love, as it were, the more we know that has a tangible impact. We look at customer satisfaction index. We now break that out between social CSI, as we call it, and CSI, so we can actually be able to measure the distinct difference of satisfaction between people who interact with our social channels and those that don't. And again, they're board-level metrics, which the bean counters and the big decision makers understand.
So we're getting there.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
getting there, but it's slow sometimes.
Slow, okay. I am going to ask the question, how many people are using AVE as a metric?
Oh.
2 people.
She isn't proud, look.
Okay, so your point well made is if clients want it, we're there to give them what they want, right? Or educate them to...
No.
No, you
We're
should
the
challenge.
experts. Well, not we, but as an
Challenge
industry,
and
we're the
educate.
guys that
You should,
challenge
as,
that.
as an agency, I don't know if anyone else in-house sees it like this, I would hate to have an agency who just did everything I told them to. I'm not right all the time, sometimes maybe, but I want somebody who challenges and who takes us to the next level and can open our eyes to something better. And that's really, really important. As an in-house person, you have to be that sort of manager who allows that culture to happen.
Let's move on. Let's talk about media convergence. And Farad's already raised this issue. As networks such as Facebook and Twitter start the shift very firmly to commercial plays and traditional forms of media incorporate native content and sponsored content alongside traditional editorial earned media, to what extent is paid having to become a PR function?
It will be increasingly. I think if you look at every significant social platform that's raised VC money, all of them have to make money at some point in time. And I think you can see even with Instagram coming in the US and Pinterest launching its paid pins for bigger advertisers, an element of paying for content and the change of organic algorithms to ensure that some payment is necessary. You just have to take Google as a model for how hard SEO has become in all practical forms to
organic
how much
SEO.
Organic SEO has become for and how much the paid stuff is there, and that trend will continue. That will be the pattern and path for pretty much everyone and everything that I can think of in my head over the next year or two. So not having the skill set that allows you to blend and understand the two, when to use them in tandem and unison with each other. And I think the other bit about the paid piece is also you have a lot more control about who you show stuff to, when you show it to them, and how they engage with it. So it's understanding the levels of control you have as opposed to the organic activity that you run. And that's going to be a bigger part of that whole social and data-led piece.
So, Neil, how do we persuade our clients of this? How do we persuade brands? How do brands persuade?
Well, I mean, it's still a huge problem. I mean, a lot of clients still think that if they've got 100,000 fans on Facebook, then they reach 100,000 people every time you post an update. Honestly, still.
I don't think these two do.
And revelation.
I know, it's amazing.
Where's I want my mobile back? I want to text somebody.
I think EdgeRank has been one of the for Facebook has been one of the biggest challenges that certainly faced my specialism, because the lack of education from clients. Because I think if I was a client, I'd be royally fucked off. All right? I've spent the last 3 years building up a community and spending a lot of money building up a huge community because Facebook told us that was what Facebook was for. Building a community of people, almost like a lovely CRM hug that you can convert to purchase over time. And now it's nothing to do with that at all. It's content distribution. It's content marketing. And to your point, you know, a lot of people that maybe have liked your page are not necessarily your target audience. So you might be a fashion brand who wants to target 25 to 35-year-old women, but for some reason, 40-year-old men like your page. So actually, there's no point really preaching to the converters.
We have a lot of fashion brands, and what you find is generally the people that like them on Facebook are the age group 10 to 15 years younger that can afford to buy the actual product.
Yeah.
So 15 years' time might be great. I might sell them a load of clothes, but right now, it's not going to help very much.
So it's a massive challenge because, you know, I guess the last few years, social marketing was really all about community management, right? And that's still a hugely massive function and very, very important function. But really, it's all about content marketing and disruption nowadays. So yeah, media is hugely important, absolutely important. How you convince clients? Well, I think you just show them the data, ultimately. And I think that, for example, Twitter as a platform has much bigger organic reach that we found with some of our clients than Facebook has. Even though you might only have, 2,000 followers on Twitter versus maybe 10 million fans on Facebook, they would still, the board level guys would still think that actually Facebook should be our predominant platform because we've got 10 million people on that one versus 2,000 on that one. But the way the platforms work, actually, Twitter is actually a much more viable platform in terms of value for money, in terms of organic reach.
I think the other sort of important point is there is often money going to social, but it's going through the media agency.
Yeah.
And so the objectives that are being used to spend that money tend to be actually more direct response driven rather than content driven. So what you do have is this kind of anomaly where you've got a load of content that people are expecting to work for free, and there is money in your organisation somewhere, but it's being used completely differently to what you might want to use it for. And that's where that siloing point becomes really quite important, and where we've run into it quite a lot was actually, there is money for that, it's just not our money.
And I think,
and therefore we've got to then figure out how to bring that together a bit more effectively.
Sarah, are you putting paid activity behind your own campaigns?
Not a vast amount, no. Just sorry for being slightly contentious. I mean, thinking about the paid thing and thinking about it in the car on the way here. In my early days of working in PR, it used to be called advertorials. And that's going back a long way. I know, I'm 45 now. So they've always been around. So suddenly this great, oh no, we've got to pay for it. It's like, well, wake up. It's always been there. We've all, as practitioners, we've always got to work around this. If you have a strong enough story, if you've got a strong enough angle, you know your journalists well enough, or be it your social community or whatever now, you can sell it in, you can get it in. You should not default to paid media all the time. And what worries me is that people are starting to think, oh, this is what we must do. Well, no, bollocks, it's not. You PR people, you learn how to sell a story. You learn how to integrate it into a campaign. Yes, we do need some money, some budget for things, but don't rely on it.
No.
Because it's just going to end up this really sterile environment.
I think
the spontaneity goes.
The wake up has been Facebook and the way it's tweaked the algorithm so that you can have the best content in the world and actually know you still need to pay.
We're lucky we have a dedicated team, so that we saw this coming. We worked with our agency, so you fleet of foot. You have to be fleet of foot in all the things that we do, and you start targeting in another way. And yes, Twitter for Domino's, big thing.
I think the other thing that's starting to happen, and it's certainly a trend from the States, is the number of bloggers who are now earning. There was a great article about a week ago. There's 20 or 30 fashion bloggers earning $1 million a year.
Oh, God. You should see what the
which
food
means
ones
we should all
charge.
go and do something else, by the way.
Really?
And it's very much about that. And I think that the difference you're starting to see with some of the digital media is it's much smaller, it's much more monetizable, it hasn't got those traditional relationships. So even that, and we're starting to find it in some blog spheres that unless you're kind of looking at how you package up what you're doing, getting the coverage you want is becoming increasingly difficult. And I think that's where the real challenge is, that there's always going to be a role for earned in that whole mix. But the balance, I think, is going to keep skewing as time goes forward, and that's going to be the real challenge.
And that's why I think that the Edelman Award at Cannes was so important, because they, as far as I know, recognised much earlier than anybody else that actually the paid had to be sat alongside the earned. I guess the problem then comes is, well, as an agency, big, small, whatever, how do you pitch what you do? You know, in the same way that a PR agency will pitch design and build, SEO services, apps, you know, media. How do you plug those services into your service offering in a way that doesn't just look as if, well, you can buy community management, or you can buy our press office, or you can buy our media services? Because, you know, it's a discipline. There are economies of scale to be gained from that. So I think there's a real challenge for businesses to actually look at what's the realistic opportunity commercially and decide whether or not it's better to jump in bed with a partner than it is to try and develop a service of your own.
Question to the audience: who has paid for a form of media content in the last 24 hours? So a newspaper or app, something like this. Okay, so we're a room full of communicators working in the public relations and media businesses, and 4 people have paid for a piece of media in the last 24 hours.
Do you mean annual subscriptions?
Any form of paid media you bought, yeah. So, but it's small. I mean, and that shows the challenges that the media brands are facing as they try and make money and monetize and get some return for the venture capitalists, or if they're a traditional form of media, you know, develop a viable and sustainable business model. Let's move on and talk about skills. A lot of discussion in you know, as the business changes about how our skills need to develop. What sort of people are you guys hiring for right now, and what skills are you looking for? Paul?
Me personally, I think that, you know, and this goes back to a conversation we've had on Facebook, you know, I don't want social media mavens, community managers, whatever. You know, I want somebody that's a good communicator, that's got the good basic skills, a good business brain, commercially savvy, but who has been brought up and understands social media and the power of words. And in some respect, that hasn't changed. You know, this idea that you can be a specialist in social media, with the greatest respect, I've kind of been there. But the reality is that, you know, whether...
you do good Twitter. Come on.
Yeah. But the point was, you know, that social will become so integrated into every single facet of business. Having it as a separate discipline, certainly client side, it will no longer be the valuable thing that it was. And so that's where you need to look, well, are my digital marketing skills up to scratch? Do I understand analytics? And some of the work we did with all our teams was to basically draw a grid out, saying what 7 areas do we think social will impact, whether it be people skills, customer service, advertising, data, the use of data, and then basically rank them. And that there might be 6 or 7 areas of skills and expertise within each of those, and essentially grade people or grade the teams. Because the reality is that it's just going to become so integrated, they have to have those core skills.
That's true.
From my perspective, it's that tension point between integration and specialism. You don't want to have the social media corner, the team kind of over there going, you know, hey, we're awesome at Twitter and going to loads of conferences and rocking. You want to integrate that into the wider business. And yeah, I completely agree. You know, being called head of social media is very much a double-edged sword. Clients still want the reassurance that you're a specialist. Yeah. But when I go back to the office, I'm a planner. Fundamentally, I'm a digital planner who has just done a lot of social marketing. Yeah. But yeah, they still want that. They still want that kind of specialism. And I think that really is kind of perhaps one of the cruxes of this whole debate today, you know, in terms of this collision course. Actually, behind the scenes, aren't we just all trying to be more integrated? But actually, in some cases, clients are demanding that kind of specialism, or perhaps more to the point, procurement are demanding that kind of specialism.
Sarah, when you're hiring an agency, what are you looking for?
For an agency, the agency and in-house are two, well, no, not really, two completely separate. Agency, as I just said previously, people who challenge, people who have obviously got a passion for what they do, people who have got an understanding of how to take something and translate it and make it into the news agenda and then translate it into features. Also, it's really important, I think we'll probably go on to talk about silos shortly. We keep dancing around the subject a little bit. it's not only do you have to get, from our perspective, when you look and think, right, can I work with that agency? Yes, I can work with that agency. Can that agency then work with the other established agencies at Domino's? Yes or no? Because for us, it's really important that everybody works together. It's one team. We do our best. We don't always get it right, but we do our best to leave the ego at the door, and everybody works together. So it's like somebody said yesterday, it's like a complex dating scenario, you know, is everybody going to match up? But for us, it's really important. In-house, I think we're probably going to start recruiting soon, actually. So one of the things, just echoing what you're saying, is about somebody with passion for communication in all forms. You don't have to, and I don't want a social media specialist, because one of the things I'm concerned about is that there's a real art. I don't have it. If anybody's daft enough to follow me off the back of it, you see I definitely don't have it. But there's a real art to getting things succinctly in 140 characters. Great, that's fantastic. There is also a massive art in taking a piece of activity and taking that into a broadsheet feature. And I'm worrying where things are going with PR a little bit, that people are starting to almost silo themselves. So I do social PR, I do traditional PR. I need somebody who's passionate about communication and who's interested in doing and capable of doing all those things.
Job coming up at Domino's.
Yeah. You heard it here.
How do you keep your skills up to date, Farah?
How do I keep them up to date? By actually doing some of the work occasionally is probably the best way of doing it. And I'd actually agree with Neil's point, is that you end up with clients that expect a specialist to be in the room, but actually the core thing that your job is actually getting as much as you know into the teams that are working alongside those guys. And I think the skill set thing is a real challenge, because for a lot of the digital side, you tend to be a lot more numerate and analytical and data-driven and Excel and geek. And you need to be a very different set of skills for the PR side to work. So what we're finding actually is you try and build the right teams. You understand that you're going to get quite disparate skill sets. You're not going to get people that are great at everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I know from the partners I work with, when we debate about the angles we come from, we'd be crap at doing each other's jobs. And so I think it's really about then how do you build the right teams to fit within the clients. I think the really interesting bit is there are lots of those rooms that I sit in with clients where actually I'm pretty sure I don't need to be there. The team can handle that, because the client kind of goes, oh, you're the person that has all the digital experience and knowledge. Well, you should do the conversational bit, when actually after that's done, I'm not going to do anything really, apart from make sure the guys are up to speed and know what they need to do. So I think the organisations need it to help shape it, but our jobs are really about how do we get that through our businesses as much as we possibly can.
Okay, so there's still something bright and shiny about social and digital people, but increasingly skills are being...
Not us, we're way
skills are
too
being tied back into the business. All right, we've danced around silos, as you said, Sarah. The customer makes no such distinction between PR, marketing, creative, ad. How are you tackling this in-house? I'm going to go to the brand guys first of all. Where are the big ideas coming from? Does it matter anymore? Do you make any distinction when you put a brief out to an agency?
I mean, one of the probably the best examples that I know of, and it's not because it's an O2 one, but because I think I saw the way it was formed.
Paul works for O2, by the way.
Did you?
They provide mobile phones.
And we've got some brilliant friends and families deals if you want to come in later. 50% off. But not just because of that, but actually because I saw a fundamental change in the approach. So we are transforming as a business, whether it's O2 UK or Movistar, whatever, recognising the challenge of OTT services, messenger apps. That was a strategic business decision. We need to change. There were lots of insights that were driven from that. So it became a huge round table saying, okay, what are the core insights? Right, social, what's your take on this? TV guys, what's your take? What's the message? And then how can we deliver that across that multi-channel experience all the way through to retail? So I think that allows you to have much more freedom with ideas, and Be More Dog was probably for me one of the best opportunities to be able to say, look, we've fundamentally changed our approach to the big idea, but that was born of multiple people coming together using the same insight but from different perspectives.
Sarah, when you've got a brief, do you put it out to a specialist agency, or do you go?
No, we have a very clear culture of agency alignment in the way that you've just been talking. We get everybody in the room. All our periods are split into campaign 1, campaign 2, campaign 3, whatever. And everybody sits in the room together, debates it through, looks at the
very
different
grown
angles.
up.
It is very grown up. I'm sure it's not perfect. It's taken a while to get there. There's still a little bit of hustle and bustle around ego and stuff like that. But fundamentally, this is how we want to run it. So guys, you've got to get on with it. You have to get on with each other. The other thing that I found very weird at first, we've just started doing, and I still feel a bit buttock clenching when it happens, is the agencies go and meet on their own. They don't have anybody from in-house
Talk about
there.
you.
Sorry?
And they talk about you.
Yeah, they talk about us, and I can just imagine what they say about me. But there's the trust now. We say what we want. We're clear on a brief. We work very closely with our agencies, and I don't just work with the PR agency. I work with the social and also with the national ad guys, the TV guys. And then they go off and they come up with their plots or whatever, and then they come back and say, this is what we think our response to your X Factor sponsorship, for example, should be. And we've got this coordinated response, which is like, bloody hell. I mean, it does sound very grown up. It does take a while to get there, but absolutely it's really important. And I know when I first started at Domino's, they weren't used to having PR at the table. You know, the PR function was something that you kind of told 2 hours before it was about to happen, and then they were expected to turn around a press release and get a double-page spread in the Sun, which we all know never happens. So Simon, the marketing director, no, it doesn't. Simon, the marketing director, was very clear about, right, she comes in at the start. When we start talking about things, you have PR there right at the very start, a bit like your Be More dog. And so that's how it works. And I recommend that is the only way to do it. And if your agencies won't do it, change your agencies.
Neil, how often do you sit around the table with other disciplines, and what's the experience like?
Oh, in terms of a cross-agency mix with clients, that is the reality. You know, you're always working with different PR agencies, above-the-line agencies. Internally, we're trying to create a culture of, it's not about the big idea, it's about the right idea. Fundamentally, I think we kind of obsess about, let's create the big idea and that's going to win awards. And no, it's about the right idea. And sometimes that's not as exciting as the big idea. But I think, as I said at the beginning, ultimately we want to get to the point where we are not just selling PR, we're solving problems. And so that means that in my team I have viral video experts, videographers, developers, conventional planners, data analytics people, the whole works, and we very much try and get a broad spectrum of people, and good ideas can come from any one of those people.
You agree?
Yeah, I actually like to work for those two. They sound really well organised compared to what I've been doing a lot of time.
So, okay,
I don't think it's been easy.
what's your experience in working with clients?
It's a range, actually, and I think that there have been some which are quite siloed, quite protective about keeping their agencies in silos. You might get together, but it's by such a late stage that actually you're not going to influence the outcome of 80% of the planning that's already been done, which is a lot of experts. I actually tend to find companies that are more mid-sized, where they're smaller, have smaller resources, where people have more kind of scope to their individual jobs, tend to work better because they're less siloed as a structure. Generally, the bigger it gets, my issue tends to be the worse it tends to be in terms of trying to get all through all those pieces.
So silos exist. We're breaking them down. If you want to do the best work, if you're working a brand and you want to do your best work, you get all your agencies in the same room together and be very grown up. But it doesn't happen very often.
Basically, sack them if they don't.
Sack them if they don't. There you go.
Seriously, if there's
Lesson
not,
in agency agency management. Let's talk about what's new and shiny. Glass went on sale in the UK yesterday for a grand developer kit. We're all wearing wearable forms of media. What's getting you guys? Oh, you're not. What's getting you? Well, in terms of new tech, what's getting you excited? Nothing.
Well, I went to South by Southwest, lucky enough to do that, and got gout and drank a lot of drinks. And everyone was wearing wearable tech. Yeah, man, it's rocking. Everyone was wearing wearable tech, and it sort of felt like, I finally come to a place where I can wear Google Glass and not look like a glasshole, because everyone else is wearing it too. It's great. I mean, it's really exciting. And I think certainly what Apple are...
It's really exciting.
Google Glass.
convince yourself.
Google Glass. No, but I think I'm more actually excited
Really
about what
exciting.
Apple are going to do with health.
Right.
I think that to me is really, really exciting, because whereas Google Glass is still kind of quite niche. Apple have a wonderful track record of taking something and making it as broad as possible. And I think I guess the quantified self and sort of tracking kind of our footsteps and our heart rate and all that kind of stuff is not something that probably most of this room are that interested in. But the way that Apple are probably going to do that, I think this time next year we'll all be comparing our footsteps and our heart rates to each other and sort of creating a sort of gamified experience around that. So I'm very excited about what Apple are going to do really in terms of wearable tech.
Paul, you're already gamifying your cycling routes.
Yeah. Well, exactly. But I think to Neil's point, I think it's around sensors. We're measuring how many steps I take, how many hours sleep I get. What does that change my behaviour? Well, in some respect, yes. But does that actually change my life for the better? Is it helping me lose weight or eat food better? Perhaps the Apple stuff will. But I think a lot of the kind of quantifiable stuff isn't actually delivering any kind of meaningful, life-changing experiences. So with more and more sensors, with connected home, that kind of thing, you can't help but think that that's when you'll start to see some real tangible benefits. But for me, I mean, the tech comes and goes, and I say to all our guys that it's about the why and the kind of the humanization of it. And the one thing that two main areas of focus for me are around the kind of the psychology of why we share and why we behave the way we do. Because that usurps all platforms. I mean, that's focusing on that is really important. But the other is, from a communicator's point of view, is around messaging platforms. You've got Line, WeChat, all manner of them. They're hugely disruptive, not just to the telco industry, but actually to the way that we communicate. And if brands and agencies who are acting on brands' behalves aren't understanding that space and recognizing where and what their opportunity is, then there's a realistic chance that as Facebook starts to sort of peter out, Twitter is already perhaps declining, that actually, where are we going to socialise with our customers?
Sarah, are you using messaging? Are you using any messaging apps in your campaigns yet? Have you looked at Line?
No, you asked this yesterday when we were looking about WhatsApp and stuff. No, but what I want to do, and if I'm sure me saying this, somebody will now hopefully get in touch, is we have a massive internal audience. We have a head office site, and then we have 800 odd stores, and then coming up to 20 odd thousand employees. We need to find a solution for speaking to these people from head office, for the want of a better expression, and start getting about more passion and pride in what they do. That's where I'm starting to look at apps, those sorts of apps and things. But that's literally just me going, I need to sort this out, rather than having actually sat down and gone through it yet. So if anyone has any good internal communication solutions with regards to WhatsApp and stuff, get in touch.
Buying opportunity, make sure you spell Domino's correctly.
Yeah, because one thing that winds me up more than anything, if you spell Domino's wrong, because then I just don't answer.
Okay, so we're a little bit skeptical about wearable tech, but messaging, that's good. I'm a complete convert to wearable tech. I've got an 8-year-old son, incredibly fit, sporty guy, who back in February and March looked at me and said, "Dad, you're fat." Okay. Why is that? He said, "You eat too much, you don't exercise enough." I know there's a guy in the industry, Steve Davis, who's very into the quantified self. Look him up. He writes an excellent blog. Put me onto a wearable device. And yesterday, for the first time in 24 years, I got into a size 34-inch pair of jeans. So.
Good for you, mate. Well done.
That's the future. When everyone has one of these, the NHS is going to be a lot less busy. Okay, let's start to draw this to a close and think about some key takeaways for the audience today. If you were starting an agency or a comms team today, what would it look like? What's your Paul?
I'm not sure if I certainly wouldn't start an agency again. I think it's apart from the fact it's a real pain in the backside, I think it's too difficult. Comms has become such a sort of a splintered discipline which requires everything. I think it's a real punt to, unless you're part of a certain sort of exclusive Facebook group, in which case you've got the best of, we just need Shingy involved. I think for me it's about recognising that mobile. It's got to be mobile first. Mobile, is everything. We communicate, we bank, we shop. You've got to be thinking mobile first, and that for me is, if I was to create anything, it would be looking at people understanding how mobile integrates into campaigns and all the messaging.
Okay. Mobile. Neil?
I think really, going back to some of the points I made earlier, I think it's really about that tension point between specialism and integration. Currently in my team, I have a series of specialists, but the processes we've put in place make sure that we are all incredibly integrated. I think, to your point, mobile is incredibly exciting, and I think if I were to win the lottery, perhaps a mobile agency would be kind of something that I would look to in terms of a smart move. But in terms of conventional agency structure, I think it's about getting the right mix of people together, but most importantly, getting those processes in place.
Sarah, you've made a great play for traditional skills and just being more assertive, and prouder than about what we do. Is that where our future lies, June?
Yeah, I think so. There's a combination of that, and also, making sure that you've got an eye on the future. You've got to be fleet of foot. You've got to have somebody, going back to, I think we talked about it with recruitment. I wouldn't set up an agency because I think that's too complicated, and for all the reasons that you've talked about, and also you're juggling too many different clients. I like in-house. I like being saturated in the one thing. That's just how I'm made up, I guess. So I would look for somebody who has that kind of passion and wants to get into that real level of detail, but also about the level of detail with communication, that they're interested, they're eager to learn more about digital, they want to know about mobile, they're coming up, they're pestering me about things. That needs to be there with the balance for, there's the old-fashioned PR skills are never going to go away. And somebody who loves PR, it's a great career, really good career.
Are you optimistic?
Am I optimistic? I think, yes, generally I'm optimistic. I don't think I'd start an agency again, to be honest. But I think...
God, no one wants to start an agency.
I think if you look around at the space and what's going on, the opportunities are elsewhere. So for me, I'd actually focus on the data side of things. There is so much greater wealth of data that we're not using in the way we can. That's going to multiply by 10 when the Internet of Things really does take off. There's going to be a wealth of services that people will need to leverage off the data, and that's the route that I'd go down. But I think over the next 5 or 10 years, I think the thing to bear in mind is the space will continue to evolve, technology will continue to change, and it's having an open mindset to try new things, even if they fail, and keep moving on, because that's the only way you're really going to adapt. A lot of the things we try in the next 5 or 10 years probably won't work, and it's absolutely fine.
It's that endless curiosity, I think, that I look for in terms of being very granular in terms of interviewing someone. I don't care if you're a dyed-in-the-wool community manager with 5-6 years of experience. I care if you can write and spell, have some degree of mathematical knowledge, and are ridiculously passionate and curious. That to me is the underlying skill set. Everything else can be taught, but how you're made up as a person, when we're hiring quote-unquote conventional PR people, we want them to be just as fluent in social and digital, and vice versa. It's that curiosity that unifies, I guess, our approach to recruitment.
Exactly.
What a great point to end on. So we've covered an amazing amount of ground. We started off by talking about chips on our... We're a profession with chips on our shoulders. Actually, we're not. We just need to be prouder and more confident and enter the awards and on the same basis as the ad guys. We're definitely moving to a more integrated world, and we have to take our place alongside other disciplines and be assertive in doing that. The future is very definitely mobile. No one's going to build an agency anytime soon amongst our panelists. So if there's any VCs in the room, take your money elsewhere. But we definitely recognise that as an opportunity. We've got to get our heads around paid as a profession. Actually, Sarah made the great point that 30 or 40 years ago, that was called an advertorial. Perhaps 20 years ago.
Yes, can I just finish that back? I'm only 45. I know it's early in the morning. You wouldn't give me Botox. So.
Fact is, we've always done that. So it's not new. Data and tools and embracing that is absolutely critical to the future of our profession. We're a bit sceptical about the third-party market because everyone's coming up with with features rather than products that actually solve a workflow issue. But that's something that's clearly a work in progress, and we're going to see a lot of development in that area. And then the final thing is we've got to be intellectually curious and keep learning. And I guess that's the future to all our successes and having a great career ahead of us. So I want to thank all the panelists. Thank you very much. Neil, you very clearly won the... no one dropped the F-bomb, but you very clearly won the...
fricking.
Freaking, okay, all right. Yeah, we are actually on video, so we were warned not to. But no, well done, Neil. And thank you all for coming along to the British Museum at the crack of dawn and taking part in this discussion. Really appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks,